We should have a live stream showing up here in a little bit on Builder Buy. Yes. You did. You did. He's still trying to talk to you? We get lots of people asking stuff on the websites, and sometimes you're not quite sure what their intentions are or the relevance to what we're doing. For example, he was asking about the spam page, and I didn't see what he had relevance to spam. Could have been. Could have been. But it wasn't spam per se, stay away from. It would have been spam as a resource. I'll get back to him. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Builder Buy. We're going to get started here in about 7 minutes. We're going to be talking about computer technology, laptops. We're going to do a little talking about the X370 chipset, and I've got some information on Thunderbolt as a kind of an update, reminder, refresher that we're going to talk about. Lou's computer finally found its home. She built a Ryzen 7. So stick around. We'll be back at 1 o'clock, which is in about 6 minutes. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to Builder Buy, where we talk about computer technology, building, buying, and upgrading computers. Be back at 1 o'clock. Okay, we got our projector set. Cameras are all good. We still have audio on one camera that's not right, so we just won't be able to use it. Everybody, please be sure and sign up. Those of us that are here live, kind of gives us an idea of what we've got, what we're doing. Well, as of this month, folks, we've had our projector for 3 years now.
3 years?
Yeah, 3 years. Doesn't seem like it, does it? I've got it written on a box where I can see it, and I remind myself of it every week because it's like pinch me. I think it's amazing that we're doing this. Everybody remember procedure so that we can hear everybody. When you have a question, be sure and raise your hand so that Robert Duvernay will see you, get a mic to you so we can hear you, and everybody online can hear you. Jerry Lee's back. How was your vacation in North Carolina? You enjoyed it? Good. Did you go because of your sister? Is she okay? Well, it seemed like you left at an odd time this time of year. You missed Mom's birthday, so we're going to do something later. Good, I'm glad. Glad to hear that. There's no point we don't go ahead and get started. Joe, let's get you mic'd up too. Yes. Joe's going to share some information with us. Find a good spot. And remember, folks, there's 2 buttons on the microphones. Do not touch button number 2, that's the button on the right. Only touch the button on the left. It reprograms the mics if you touch the button on the right, by accident or on purpose. Yes, Joe. Joe's got something he's going to share with us.
Okay, I'm sure you've all heard the news recently about these hijacking computers and getting cash for them. You know, if they hijack a personal computer like yours or mine, they're going to ask for about anywhere from $300 to $600. And so, as aggressive as they're getting, I would say make sure you do one thing to foil them. Back up your computer. Clone it, image it, but do something, and do it fairly frequently. I think the FBI is going to be getting on these guys and probably finding them before too much longer.
Good.
But in the meantime, they can do an awful lot of damage. So do that. Keep it up. Clifford. Jack. Oh.
At my age, by the time I get a mic, I forget what I'm going to say. Uh, Did I understand that this big worldwide calamity that just happened with the hackers, that all the boobs were still using XP?
No, I believe it happened. Some of the computers that were on were not XPs.
Oh, really?
They were, yeah, government, hospitals.
Computers as far back as XP are going to get updated, which is unprecedented from Microsoft.
My understanding is that they were able to exploit a hole in the Microsoft programming, which would be like XP, 10, 8, whatever, and that they, as soon as they found out about it, they, made patches to fix the problem. So if you run just Microsoft Defender, that's the best way to. That's the second best way to avoid this problem. First best way is to never click on something on an unknown email.
Also, I got an email from Acronis plugging their product, and they're saying that their new release for 2017 will guarantee, now I don't know what kind of guarantee it is, but will definitely stop somebody from hacking your machine like that.
This was Chrome, you said?
Acronis.
Oh, Acronis, excuse me.
I think what they're doing is working on the hype that you will upgrade the program and you will actually use it.
Yeah.
You won't use it like Lou, 2014, and the computer goes out, and then 2017, and that's how far back your files go. So, something to think about. Yes, Ben.
As we get older, we have to rely on doctors a little bit. I have 3 doctors, and each of them use XP as their base. And I went into a hospital for a checkup one day, and they still had they were using XP as their operating system.
Wow.
So there's a lot of people. You see, these people don't go online like we do.
Yeah.
They only go on for they only use their computers to keep track of stuff, and to transfer from doctor to doctor. So they all use XP because they don't need anything else. So maybe that's why Microsoft is deciding to do something about XP.
Well, keep in mind, though, that because of the laws that changed on Medicare and medical and insurance, all doctors that worked online before are going to be going online now. You will get, I go to the doctor, and every time I go there, I get a 3 or 4 page report saying what I did today, what my meds I'm taking, what they said before, and what's changed. I mean, you get a lot of information today that you never got 5 years ago.
Yeah.
At least I do.
Yeah.
It's my understanding this hack happened as a result of email. So computers that had access to email, that's how the infection occurred. But then once the computer's on the network, that's how it then goes and infects other computers.
What do you back up?
Hang on a second. Lou, always keep me a backup shot. When you use the keys to do that with, I don't have a backup shot when I need to get off screen. And I need to get off screen so I can go hit the camera. So you've got folks were using a Blackmagic switch. Lou Warren is running the switch, and I'm glad she's here because she had to go see the doctor yesterday. So if you would keep me a backup shot. When I mean a backup shot, something different on preview.
Shop?
Hang on just a second.
Not the cloud?
Hang on just a second.
Use the cloud? Or?
Hang on just a second.
Okay.
Okay. What I cause see it breaks the train of thought to have something like that. Understand? Okay. Manolo, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. What were you going to ask, Manolo? You had a question?
Well, the question was, you back it up to the cloud, or what do you back it up to?
Okay, Manolo, what I was speaking of, there's several things going on here. One, the presentation, the conversation we're having, and then there's a conversation I'm having with Lou while she's running the switch.
Oh, okay.
My conversation, what I said, was so Lou would understand to run the switch. See, when I need to change the camera, I'm one person, and I can't be but in one place at one time. So when I said I need a backup shot, that means when I hit the space bar, we see a different shot on the camera because we have an audience online that's watching the meeting. You understand?
I think so.
Okay, so that's what that was all about. That's why I'm doing that.
Well, if he can't be two places at once, he needs to practice more.
I'm working at it. I'm working at it. You can't beat the pay for what we're doing. After all, we are volunteers, and we do this because we are trying to help each other. And I appreciate what everybody's doing, but some of these advanced things that we were talking about, I didn't have a chance to talk to Lou about it ahead of time. She's working on it, and I think she's doing great. She's doing the switch. If she wasn't here, I'd be doing it, or Ben would be doing it. And Ben's going to be gone for the next 2 weeks, so I will not have the expertise of Ben to help with the projector, the switch, setting up the tripods. But I'm hoping Jim will be here and some other folks can help pitch in. So, did you have any other comments, Manolo, about what we were talking about? Because we got off topic because I was trying to take care of the switch. Do you understand? Yeah. So I can't be in two places at once. And my backup shot, number 4, which is that camera, is right back over there. Got to have a backup shot. Okay, so anyway. Okay, so remember, folks, everybody, clone, backup, imager drive is extremely important. You've got to do that. You've got to maintain it. And there's another reason, whether you like it or not, to be sure you've got all your updates done, because this last little ransomware thing we had, which was, this is an article on Malware Bytes. I've got a link on the talking points for Builder Buy. This is one of the screens you'll see. It's the WannaCryptor, which is WannaCry. WannaCry ransomware hits big just before the weekend, so WannaCryptor and WannaCry. We are told that it hit probably about 100 countries. You've got to have your systems protected. Now, Jerry Lee is one that always said, I've never been hit. And he used to say that back in the days when there was a bug running around, a virus that could hit the BIOS. Remember, if you can write to it, so can a virus. And back in the days when we had viruses attacking BIOSes, the only way you could fix it was to change out the chip. And now you don't change chips, you reprogram them. And that's another reason to use a Gigabyte board or a board that has a dual BIOS. So, piece of information, food for thought. I'm going to go here to Builder by Talking Points, and it's number 39 on Talking Points. If you want to read up on it, it's something to think about. There's a lot of stuff I'd like for us to get in today, but what I really want to focus on is one about the chipset, the X370. Lou's machine finally went home over the weekend, and Lou built a Gigabyte, and I can go up the top where her specs are at, and she used the Gigabyte board with the X370 chipset. I like it. Problem we had turned out to be power supply. Now, as we talked last week about how to diagnose a system, John Lum had a problem with his computer. He went and bought a new power supply, and we're trying to figure out if the power supply was the issue. Was it, Joe?
Nope.
Wasn't?
Well, not now. It might have been, but the problem now is if he doesn't plug in the power supply, he gets power to the board. As soon as he plugs in that VGA power, 12
Yes.
volts, cannot boot after that.
Well, that's strange.
Absolutely no response. We tried 2 different cables.
So do you think it's the power supply, the cables, or is it the motherboard?
I think it's a motherboard.
Still the motherboard. Well, we said that might be the issue. So, John, the next step you're going to take, can we get a mic in John Lum's hands?
Yeah, the next step he's going to take, I recommended, I don't know what he's going to do, but I recommended that he take the motherboard out of the machine and set the motherboard on the table by itself, and with one hard drive plugged in and maybe only one stick of RAM and the monitor, see if you can get it to boot up. Now, if you can get it to boot up there, then we can slowly put the other stuff together and find out what's shorting us out.
Whoops. So is that the next step? John?
Yeah, I don't know this. It sounds like a lot of work to put into a computer that I'm going to replace in another 2 or 3 months.
But it's the learning that you're going to get out of it,
Right, right.
which is why we do this in the first place. You're going to learn more.
Maybe all I'm going to get out of this is experience.
Well, when people have a computer problem, unless you solve it, like today we had 4 little problems. We had to solve 3 of them before we could start the meeting. We had a couple of audio problems. We had, one of them was buttons, another one was a loose connection, and then we had an issue with the converter to get video up on the multi-view for Lou, which turned out to be a power cable. Those little things you need to be able to spot quickly, and with a little bit of practice, it relates to working on a computer. When you have a problem, you need to be able to diagnose it. Even though you're ultimately going to build a new computer, the experience you're going to get from working through this will help you to resolve and understand the working process. It's like, for example, when we set up the equipment, Philip Aguilar, he's not here today, I hope he's all right. He likes this org chart he's got. It tells nothing about what things are plugged in where and how they work. It's just plug this in, plug this in. If something doesn't work, that wouldn't do me any good because you can't diagnose it. So that's what you're dealing with. You need to understand the process so you can diagnose it. Because you've had this problem once, the first time you've ever had it, that doesn't mean you won't have it again. You could. Because remember last week we talked all this stuff about power supplies. In the past, power supplies, when they died, they either worked or they didn't. Now I've seen power supplies, and I was replacing the OCZ brand power supplies, which we were using 5 years ago, and they're all going out. When I had, periodically the system would reboot and I was getting memory errors. Nothing wrong with the RAM, nothing wrong with the motherboard. It was the power supply. Lou, we built a new machine, but because we built a new machine, we used the old case, we used the old power supply. That power supply was noisy. I thought it was the video card making all the noise. And we were having a memory error problem. And the beeps, according to the motherboard, said it was the lower 64K. Turned out power supply solved all of her problems. So walking through this process, no matter how much we know, no matter how much we do this, you can't take anything for granted. Audio's cutting in and out. Love it when that happens. You just can't take anything for granted. So experience, even though you laugh about it, when you have a problem, it helps if you understand it and not just Joe or myself.
Right. It's like I said, I'm going to build a new one here pretty quick, and I've got stuff that's in this old computer that I sure would like to get into right now, and I'm not having any luck transferring it off of the old hard drives onto new stuff. So
How come?
oh, that's a whole nother story.
Were you not able to access the files?
I took one of the cloned hard drives that I have,
Okay.
and I bought one of those things that allows you to run your hard drive by feeding a USB into my laptop.
Right?
And my laptop is not seeing this. You know, when you go into the boot menu, you should see, hard drives, floppy drives, USB drives, so on like that. All I'm seeing is the SSDs that are in the computer. It is not seeing the boot drive. Boot menu does not list.
Okay, John, here's another good example. You do not want to see that as a boot drive.
Boot menu.
You don't want to see that in the boot menu. You don't want to boot off that drive.
All right.
You want that drive to be seen as a data drive. So you
Okay.
plug it into the USB port, you go into Windows, and you see through Windows Explorer if you can see the drive. You don't want to see that drive from the boot menu
Oh, I saw. Okay.
because the HAL is different. It's a different hardware extraction layer. You don't want to boot that drive to boot off of it with the operating system loading. You want to boot your laptop drive, and that's a data drive. Go
All
into
right.
Windows and look at it through Explorer.
All right.
You understand?
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. I was trying to boot up the hard drive.
Nope.
To.
Nope.
All right. I won't.
Data drive. Think of it as a data drive.
Okay.
I've got one of those machines I told about last week, and I use that quite a bit at home. And I just, when I'm ready to use it, my machine's always up and running. I just plug it into the USB port, and we're ready to go.
All right. I'll try again.
Now, if you have some issues with that, be sure and email one of us.
All right.
Joe's going to be kind of hard to get hold of since he's going to be with family. We got him for today, and then he's not going to be here for a couple of weeks in June. So you want to make the time count.
Just to remind everybody,
2 Wednesdays in June.
I will be out I'll be out June the 14th and probably the 21st. And
June-
I'll be here during the previous Wednesdays.
Okay, June 14th and June 21st. Good to know. So we've got Joe for 3 more weeks. Good to know. Okay, so if you have any issues, you'll let us know, right?
Right.
Okay, good. Okay. Now, back over to this machine. Let's see where we at. We talked a little bit about malware and ransomware. Everybody uses Malwarebytes? I hope. You should. You can download it directly, or you can get it through Ninite, but you should use it, especially after this little scare we've just had. But you got to use the paid version for it to catch it in real time. Otherwise, you'll be going, oops. And personally, I think it's worth every penny. Now, how many of you are running the Windows 10 Creators Update? Anybody? Well, just about the time we've decided, y'all have heard about the next one coming out? The Windows Fall Creators Update, which I think will be out, what, in September? They're already talking about the goodies? Yes. Dwayne?
That's, when I read the Creators Update, my reaction to that was, it's a lot of changes, and I'm sure they're very nice for other people, but as far as I could tell, they were not meaningful at all to me.
I hear you.
Whereas the Fall Update looks like there are a lot of changes that will be useful. I wish I could call them all to mind, but if you read the review, I think you'll find that for the day-to-day user like us, that they are going to be some useful updates there.
About time.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff I saw in the Windows Creators Update was useful if you had a tablet. Well, I personally am not using a tablet, haven't used a tablet in years. I'm thinking about it, but brings up another interesting point because there's an article on Red Shark about a tablet and using a tablet to do some of your video editing work, if it can be modified with a template style sheet to do that with. And what's curious is, I'm going to go back over to this computer that's got our YouTube videos on it, which is not that one. Let's go to, there you go, thank you. Down here on the talking points, there is a tablet that I've never heard of, and the way I found it, you know, it's always about information. We learn things that I don't think information follows a straight line. You learn about something, and then you learn about something else, and then you learn about something else as a result of that. And then you forget what you were originally doing. It's kind of how Google works. Bing is a lot worse at it. But on Red Shark, there's an article about a tablet, the Wacom Intuos for video editing. Well, a user commented about a tablet made by a company called XP Pen, and there's a star 03 and a star 05. One of them's like 50 bucks. For 50 bucks, it's worth monkeying with. I haven't used a tablet since I had one on a serial port. Tells you how old they are. Got it sitting on the shelf. Looks great. But I haven't needed it. And it was too small to start with. So if you need a tablet, that's something to think about. But that was really what I got out of the Windows Creators Update. But this new one, I hope something significant is going to come out of it. Now, also something Joe mentioned last week about screen burn-in. I haven't seen or read or heard about screen burn-in on an IPS panel. I wish that Richard Worthen could have been here. He must not be doing too well, or else Donna's still sick. But he's got an IPS panel. I've got an IPS panel. And what I have read, and I've got a link up, and I've got under Joe's name on Ars Technica, there's an IPS screen get burn-in. Do IPS screens get burn-in? And they get what's called image persistence. Oh, Andrew, glad you're here. Thank you. Didn't see you a while ago. Image persistence means there's an image that will stay there for a while, but it can't burn in because that's something that is exclusive to a CRT monitor. A CRT can get burned in. And the way you set it is by turning it off and on or putting up a white image. And it will refresh them, but you cannot get it. Yes, Robert?
I was very surprised to see in one of the restrooms between here and Dallas, there's two in each direction. And
To what now?
the restrooms on I-45 between here and Dallas, the various counties put up a public restroom every 96 miles.
Gotcha.
And they have TV screens in there that you can go select something about some aspect of the county or Texas history and watch a little 2 or 3 minute thing. But most of the time they sit there with the system screen saying, touch me here to do this. And I observed on one, and they are LED monitors, but they have burned in that screen. So it is possible somehow for LED monitors to
present what looks like burn-in. Because if you spend enough years showing the same screen, some of those pixels stick. And I was just surprised to see that. As you say, to me, that's a CRT aspect. But most people don't have the kind of duty cycle that these things in the restrooms have.
Because they're being used like a kiosk.
Yeah, but mostly they're not used at all. They just sit there showing the default screen, and some elements of that default screen stay with you when the program plays. So they're doing something that looks like burn-in.
Image persistence.
Well, no, it doesn't go away. I mean, it's permanent. Those things have damaged themselves from years of showing the same thing. So I don't know what it is.
Even when you go up and touch it and try to change the image to show you something else, you still see a ghost of the other image.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah, very strange.
I haven't seen it. I've read about it, and all I know is what I've read. So until I see it. Do what? Well, you guys talk about these places that travel, and I will remind you again every time you tell me that. Travel is not something we're able to do because Mom's not able to travel. So for those of you that can, I think that's great. Let's change that over for a second. Okay, let's move on to something else. I want to get into laptops, something we talked about last week that I thought was kind of curious. We talked about a laptop that had cooling on it, liquid cooling. Well, what I'm hoping is we're going to see more of that. But in the meantime, some of the laptops, as they're coming out, I think we need to look at and see what's going on. For example, Jack is thinking about a laptop. I know Dwayne is thinking about a laptop. Now, Lou, Andrew, and Nick Streeter, who's not here today because he's with, I think, working on his son's house or helping him with his son's house at the farm.
Well, he's out on the farm, yeah.
Well, anyway, he's out at the farm. Anyway, all three of y'all bought the same laptop. And in my opinion, for the time being, that was the best deal for the money. And that was the
Asus.
well, I don't have that was the Asus Zen 4K laptop. And I think that's a great laptop. And personally, that's how I judge other laptops that I look at. Now, to be honest, that Asus Zen 4K was not a true 4K display. But with all the bells and whistles that were on it for the money, that package from Costco had everything. The closest thing to it is a deal on Amazon, but you pay extra to get Windows Pro on it, Windows 10 Pro, and then 64-bit, and then you have the little dongle for the network connection, plugs into a USB port. That came with your laptops. I don't see it as part of this package. But there's some deals on Amazon, but specifically on Newegg, which I find kind of interesting. And I'm going to flip over here to this talking points, and I'll see if I can find the one on Newegg. Mel Babb was also going to get a new laptop. Did you get your laptop yet, Mel? Mel Babb didn't have her laptop yet. Watch the cables. Yeah, we got lots of cables. Lots of stuff to plug in. Still looking. Well, you'll get there. One laptop that we heard about, I think Dwayne sent us this last week. There's a link on Gigabyte, and I'm going to go to that. I'll hold the control key, press enter. The Gigabyte Aero 15. There's an Aero 15 and an Aero 14. This one comes in 3 colors. Not that it changes the speed any. The orange, the NVIDIA green, and in black. But the specs look pretty good. And I'm going to get on down here to the specs. Yeah, black, orange, and green. Computer controlled, CNC and nanoprint lithography. Nice case, very thin. I don't know how it compares to battery life to the Asus Zen, because as Nick Streeter said, the one they've got, battery life, fantastic. He gets what, 5 hours?
More than that, yeah.
More than 5 hours?
He did 3 hours, or 2 hours up here, 3 hours up here.
3 hours
and
here.
Said he had 3 hours left, at
Wow.
least.
So that's a 6-hour battery. Nice. Now, one thing this has in it that's nice, it's got the updated graphics, and I mentioned the updated graphics because, not that you want it, but as a specification, since we've seen Netflix talk about their minimum requirement for a video card is you've got to have a GeForce GTX 1050 with 3 gigs, which means you've got a GeForce GTX 1050i with 3 gigs. They're actually 4. But this has a GTX 1060 with 6 gigs in it. It's got a PCI Express M.2, and it runs with DDR4. Of course, it's an Intel chip. All new processors. It's the i7. Less battery consumption with 4K playback. But I'm interested in the gear for the kind of stuff we do, and I'm also looking at a laptop that, for example, if somebody says, hey, what laptop would you recommend? I'd say, well, what do you want to do with it? And based on the specs, this is one that I would say is a good deal. Now, if we go looking at laptops at Newegg, there are some laptops that are included in what I would say, show me a drive that's got an M.2 in it, say 512 gigs. Well, there's some MSI laptops that come up that don't have a 512 gig SSD. They've got like a pair of two 256s, or they'll have a 256 and a 1 terabyte. That's not a 512. But having one with an NVMe drive or PCI Express 4, if we're going to do this on a desktop, we ought to be able to get that stick of chewing gum memory in a laptop. Now, granted, it's got a fan in it. Not a fan of that. I'd like to see liquid cooling.
What is it? He said it's got a fan.
Talking to the mic.
Can we get a mic on,
Says it has a fan. Scroll back down. It says it has a fan and a
you mean scroll back up?
back up. Yes, excuse me. Says
Especially-
that a fan and a heat pipe system. What is that?
It says incorporates a specially designed dual fan and heat pipe system that takes care of both GPU and CPU to maintain an optimal chassis temperature and performance. That thing's still got to breathe. And if that thing can't breathe, you know what's going to happen. It'll shut down. It's also curious for those that are into photography. This might be a good option for photography because it says it's a world first with the X-Rite Pantone display color certification. I'm kind of surprised. I don't guess I've ever seen that in a laptop, but I've never looked for that either. It's got Thunderbolt 3 on it, and the Pantone color calibration, if you're doing photography and you want to match your colors to whatever your output is, to whatever kind of printer, this is set up ready to go. Calibration device, X-Rite Pantone. It's got Thunderbolt 3, 40 gigabits, up to 40 gigabits, which is the USB 3.1C. So of course you can put in a external display and up to 4 external display outputs, which is kind of wicked. Not that I would do it on a laptop like that, but you could edit audio, you could edit video, do photography. The keyboard, not so much. The lights on the keyboard will change. I don't know what it is with the fascination of lights on keyboards. I just don't get it. But it's there. Backlit keyboard. I'd get kind of freaky trying to look at the keys. Oh, and editor's keys, as a side note, has overlays you can put on a keyboard. So if you need keys to show you what the keyboard shortcuts are for your video application, they make an overlay that can go on those for that. My concern is always the touchpad. People complain about those. It says outstanding battery life, 94 watt hour battery. I don't remember how that compares to the Asus Zen. And there'll be some new Asus Zens coming out. It's got a smaller power supply, which is curious. Ultra thin. Now here's what I like to see. I want to see the ports. I've got a Kensington lock, DC jack, USB 3 on the left side, 2 of those ports, and a Thunderbolt 3 port on the left side, as well as an SD card reader. So for those of us with cameras like our Canon XA35s or our Canon G40s, we pull that SD card out, stick it in the side of that laptop, smoking. We got access to our data because we're not having to plug into a separate USB 3 device. Now on the right side, this has something that the Asus Zen did not. If you'll notice, there's an RJ45 connection up there. Built right in, so you don't have to use a little $30 adapter. You don't have to worry about it, it's there. Should have been on the Asus Zen, I'm surprised it wasn't. Another USB 3 port, and we've got HDMI 2.0, which means we can get 4K out of that, and a mini display port, which will also do 4K. So there's a laptop with a display in front of you and 2 more displays right beside it. That's kind of nice. Most laptops just have one output. It's usually HDMI. And through our converters, we've only had one laptop we had a problem with, and I don't understand why. That was Ben's laptop. we couldn't get it to sync with one of our converters. I had to use the Geffen converter to make it sync up. I was kind of surprised. And then a combo audio jack, which is either headphones or microphone. But for the size and capacity and what it's got, looks pretty good to me. Even has a little battery check. We've added a battery click function to keep track of the remaining battery life. Know exactly how much battery life is left without even turning your laptop on, just by looking at the icon next to your trackpad. And it mentions 2-year warranty and the video out, HDMI 2.0 and mini display port 1.3. It's available in 3 different colors. There's the Arrow 15, and if this shows the bottom, I believe the Arrow 14, yeah. So the Arrow 14 and the Arrow 15, each one 3 colors. And if you notice the specs on these, it shows the storage in M.2. I'm going to zoom in on this if I can. It's got 16 gigs of memory, and it can go to 32. The display is 1920 by 1080. It is not 4K native to that display, but you can plug a 4K monitor into it. 16 gigs of RAM, DDR4, and it'll take up to 32 gigs. And it's got an M.2. Now this says here supports an NVMe PCI Express by 4. In the other information we read up above, it said PCI Express by 4. So my understanding would be that has a PCI Express by 4 M.2 card in there, 512 gig. I'm going to have that on a just desktop. I definitely want it on a laptop. Now, the only downside, it's got Windows 10 Home. So 2 things this doesn't have. It doesn't have 4K out of the display. To get 4K out of this, you do it out of the monitor. But again, why would you want 4K on a laptop? It's for video. If you're actually editing the video and you want to be able to see those silly menus, the 1080 may be easier to deal with, and that's what we had to dump Lou's down to, and I think that's what we dumped Nick's down to as well, didn't we? Because issues with the scaling in the applications, scaling in Windows.
Icons primarily.
Yeah, that was just annoying. So as this compares to the 2, not bad. But if you'll notice the price, I still think that Asus Zen was a better deal for the money. That was under $1,500. And this, that's $1,900. Now granted, you get newer graphics that follows the spec with Netflix, which may be a good idea, but I still say for the money, y'all got bang for the buck. And I've been watching Costco, and I've been looking at the laptops, and I haven't seen anything yet I'm impressed with. But it'll be one of those deals. Costco will come along with something probably, let's see, this is May, coming up on June, probably around September. We just keep watching every month. But these kind of issues, when someone comes out with something, I want to look at it and compare. So if someone says, I'm interested in a laptop, and is there something that compares to the Asus Zen? Yes, you can still get the Asus Zen on Amazon from a vendor, and I've got a link up on it. Or you can look at this new laptop from Gigabyte, but it's going to cost more. But is it worth more? That's something each of us have to decide for. Because if I were going apples and apples, I would lean toward the Asus Zen if I could get my hands on it. Even buying that Asus Zen that's more expensive, would it be better to get the Asus Zen or to get this Gigabyte? And of course, I'd shop around, see who else has got it, not just Newegg, possibly on B&H Photo. Love doing business with them. But the specs on it look pretty good. But the thing that would lean me toward this new one would be the graphics, the GTX 1060. So, based on the Pascal architecture. The new stuff will be coming out, you know, when we go this next round again. But right now, these are the laptops coming out on what's available. So I'm going to go back over to Build or Buy. That's one option for a laptop. Looking at the Thunderbolt, I went looking at Belkin because I was going to share with you guys some stuff on the computers we've been building. You know, we talk a whole lot about power supplies last week, and I think it was wise what John Lum did when he bought the EVGA G3 power supply. You bought a 750 watt? John, 750 watt. I think that's a good place to be for the next system you build, you know, going forward. I don't think you've lost any money on it, but going a step further, you need to have a surge protector on your computer. Surge protectors are extremely important. They protect it. It's not the end all, it's a place to start from. We've talked in the past about brick wall and some of the other surge protectors if you really want to go high end. But taking this back over to Belkin, the information Belkin sent out about surge protectors was relevant, and you can do some searches about how relevant that is when you see the people getting their equipment get bit. For example, our AC guy said we ought to have a surge protector on our compressor outside to protect it. Even though we have a warranty, it got hit. It's an expensive option, but it's a lot more expensive to replace that compressor. So that ought to have a surge protector, and I'm thinking seriously about it, because the surge protector, as expensive as it is a whole lot cheaper, and that's a sacrificial item. It's cheaper than replacing that compressor. And also comes into an issue even if it's under warranty. But while I was on Belkin, they had some information I thought relevant to us and the new computers about USB-C. So what I'm going to do, let's go back over to that computer. Thank you. Leave me a backup shot. You didn't leave me a backup shot, Lou. Thank you. Okay. Right here, number 48 and 49, Thunderbolt and USB-C. So what we'll do is go look at Thunderbolt first. And to look at this, you can go to Belkin's site, belkin.com, and USB-C and Thunderbolt are right up here with the top two. And I thought this is some information that, again, we shouldn't take for granted. Just the little simple things like USB. 1995. Do y'all remember Windows 95?
Yeah.
Because we had Windows 95 A, B, and C. And the only way you could get C, it had to be the OEM version because it never was on the retail version. And the reason for the USB-C, that's when we started trying to get our hands on the OEM copy of Windows. That's how you got USB 1. Otherwise, if you had Windows 95, unless you had version C, you didn't get USB support. Then we went to USB 2. There was USB 2, and then there was USB 2 high speed, which we found out a little bit later on there was a difference in the two. And then when we went to Windows 3.0, to USB 3.0, we were doing Windows probably XP. And when USB 3 first came online, I was going to bring that machine today, but for some reason I didn't, because there was two things relevant with that machine. That's the machine, I remind you guys, that I built. That was the first time I had access to USB 3. And it was a year before I had a device to plug into that port. But that machine also has one of the old PC power and cooling power supplies. That's every bit of 10 years old, because that's probably the third computer that power supply has been in. So here I had an OCZ power supply that was 5 years old that went south. And remember, OCZ bought PC power and cooling. I've got one of the old original PC power and cooling power supplies that still works. And it's in that machine that's got USB 3 on it. I meant to bring it, and I forgot why I didn't. I got changed. So then we come along with Thunderbolt. And who was pushing Thunderbolt? Intel. And Intel was pushing Thunderbolt. Intel builds what? Stuff on a PC. But who used it? Apple, the Mac stuff. So then we got Thunderbolt 1. Then we come up with Thunderbolt 2. And for what it was worth, a lot of stuff out there that worked with it, that was on the Apple. Very little PC stuff. And then we finally get this USB 3.1C with that reversible connector. And that's where we're at right now. And eventually that's supposed to be the everything do-all port. But it's going to be time before we get rid of all that other stuff. But it's been out since 2014, and here we are 3 years later. And we're just now starting to see stuff with it. In 2015, go from 10 gigabit to 20 gigabit to 40 gigabit. And it gets so confusing as you try to figure out what Thunderbolt you've got. Thunderbolt 1, Thunderbolt 2, or Thunderbolt 3. So I'm going to go to the other link they've got. I won't even go back to Build or Buy and pull it up. I just think it's a reminder. There's more information there. But let's now go look at USB-C. That little port that you cannot put in wrong. It goes either way. Good cover about spotting counterfeits. The USB 3.1 super speed, the next evolution. Don't know why they have to gray that like that. Just makes it harder to read. I don't expect we're going to wait as long to use USB 3.1C as we did to get hold of USB 3.0, but time will tell. We're seeing this on motherboards. We're building machines with it now, whether it's AMD or Intel, but we don't get full speed of this with the, let me back that up. We don't get full speed with the FX machines on an AMD, but I believe we do get full speed now with the new X370 chipset. So it's a matter of devices. And as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, I have seen at Costco a device where you can use an external SSD on the USB 3.1C. Don't remember the price, but the availability was there. Speed was not, but one thing at a time. I think it was about the speed of a regular SSD. A good example of the cables. There's also at the top of this talking about, and I'm just sharing some of this with you in case you want to go through and review this, about spotting Belkin, why Belkin, spotting counterfeits. And remember, Gigabyte had an engineer, excuse me, I take that back, not Gigabyte, Google. Google had an engineer that put an article out about spotting bad cables and how you could burn your devices. So it's good to know that you've got a place like Amazon you can go to because of that article that says we're only going to have approved cables because you don't want to burn your stuff up. For example, today we're using a couple of converters that we've always had on power. We're using decimators, but the decimator, the little red boxes, today's the first time we're running those off a battery. And the battery we're using is a battery I was using on the G40 camera. That one battery that supplied one converter is now supplying power to two converters for two cameras. Trying to be more efficient. Okay, anybody ever had trouble with Thunderbird? You have? What kind of trouble have you had with Thunderbird? You haven't had any trouble with it? Okay, I've had some trouble with Thunderbird. Well, I built an FX machine 4 months ahead of when the X370 came out. Thanks, Robert. And I've been trying to figure out where some of the problems lie. One upgrade of Thunderbird messed Thunderbird up, and the only way to solve the problem was to uninstall Thunderbird and reinstall it. But a couple of things to be mindful of, that some of Thunderbird, as well as I'm going to get into Firefox in a minute, has the ability to allow you to configure certain things. But there's a couple of menu help references here that one, you can look at the reference menu and understand the Thunderbird menus, but two, how to keep Thunderbird working. For example, y'all know if you're using Thunderbird to always take your mail out of the inbox and put it in another folder. If you don't, you risk losing your email in that inbox if you're using POP3. You can also get duplicates if you're using POP3. So this link to that file will tell you about how to keep things running clean. I'm just sharing it with you. Now, I've got a link up for an extension for Firefox. Some don't like extensions. How many of you do stuff on eBay? A few do stuff on eBay, buy things on eBay, watch pages on eBay. Okay, how do you check the page to see if it's been updated? Do you always physically watch it, or do you go back periodically and look at it, or do you do the buy now? Okay. Well, the reason I mention this, when this new stuff starts coming out, places like Amazon or Newegg, when they tell you that something's coming because they auto-notify you, it's like if you're not sitting on there watching it, you could miss it. We were having this issue when we were building the X370. 1 minute you can get the motherboards, then you couldn't get the CPUs. Then you could get the CPUs, but you couldn't get the motherboards. I found this little extension. I haven't tried it, but it's, let's go back to that computer. Thank you, Lou. Firefox extension, check for change. And what it does, it refreshes the browser and keeps checking to see when there's a change occurred. So if you need something like that, because you're looking for something like that, there's a link to a program for it. So we talked a little bit about the chipsets. We talked a little bit about laptops. We've spoken about one laptop There are a couple of others I want to get into. The other laptops I don't have linked. I have some email on them that I may bring up. I want to show you some MSI based on some of the specs I was talking about, the Gigabyte, and I want to take a look again at that Asus Zen. The road reel film competition is still going on. There's a link up if anybody's interested in that. And at one time, I think Ben was going to do something with Sling TV. Well, Sling TV's back in the news, so I got a link up on that as well. Sling TV programming packages, the oranges versus the blue. If anybody's interested in that, they can look at it. Now, for anybody buying a new TV, I think most of us are Samsung. That's the way to go. But with that said, TCL, which is a brand I'd never heard of before until they went as one of the definitive suppliers of a Roku TV, TCL is coming out with some new Roku TV models featuring Dolby Vision. I've got a link up on that if you want to read about it. And also the best media streamer you can buy, which also falls right in line with a Roku. And for lots of reasons, I like my media player separate from my smart TV. Yes, I have a smart TV, but I like that media player for reasons I'm not going to get into here. David, you got some questions? Okay, we're going to flip over there to David.
No, just some comments.
Yes, David.
You know, your Samsung comment about, you know, we all just agree that Samsung, well, I don't know where all those people are, because I
Well,
don't.
the people that have a Samsung TV would be Nick Streeter, Joe Winery, Jerry Lee, and Jim Johnson have Samsung.
Yeah, my dad's got one too. And LG, you know, LG and Sony make the best TVs out there if you want good color reproduction, and those are OLEDs.
Let's put him on screen,
And-
Lou. Thank you.
LG and Sony make these terrific OLEDs out there, and the prices have come way, 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 way down.
Have you seen the new LGs at Costco?
No.
They've got two of them up. They were putting them on display about a week ago when I went through there.
You know, I haven't been out to the Katy Costco in a while, but I was out at this Costco here a couple of times last week. But the Costco by me down in the Galleria area, they've redone the TV and computer area completely, where they're not carrying nearly as many TVs in stock at the stores as they used to.
Really?
I don't know if that's going to come to the rest of their stores in the area soon or not, but
Well, the Costco out there at Katy has bukus of TVs.
yeah. Well, I mean, they've completely rearranged everything in the store, and I asked, you know, is it just my imagination, or are there fewer TVs here? Oh yeah, it's a lot fewer.
Costco's notorious for rearranging things.
Yeah, but you know, Vizio is still by far the best, you know, bang for the buck. If you get the M or the P series, their medium and their professional series, they're really, really good value. Of course, they're
Remember, we looked heavily at the Vizios, 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, and I've had a couple of them since then. I really like them. Now,
What do you have right now?
I've got the P.
You got a Vizio?
Yeah,
I thought you had a Samsung.
My dad's got you know.
He's got the curved Samsung.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of Samsungs also. Let me, but they're older. I'm talking about, you know, current stuff.
Yes.
But I really do not like Samsung's interface on the 2016 and 2017 models.
You don't?
No, and I haven't really played with LG's or Sony's.
What
OLEDs.
is it about the interface you don't like?
Everything.
Gotcha.
Well, you know, basically, I don't much care for any of their any of the manufacturers' interface. An interesting thing about Vizio, though, you remember that 6 months ago, this company that I'm trying to think of their name now. It's a Chinese company, starts with E. Bought Vizio.
Oh, yes, yes, forgot about
a
that.
big conglomerate,
Yes.
and that deal's been called off.
Oh, really?
They got, the big Chinese company got overextended by buying up a whole lot of other things too, and one of the ways they got out of their problems, well, they're still not out of the woods, but they ditched the Vizio purchase, and I'm not sure about what that
Wow.
tells us about Vizio's future or not, but Vizio was doing just fine without them. So,
Good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I was really bummed when OCZ bought.
Hold on a second before you go too much further. I just want to mention about televisions. I got my 40-inch Samsung from Micro Center, and if you are looking for a television, that might be a good place to look because they have a surprisingly large selection, and I've seen some pretty good prices there, and the price that I got for the Samsung was pretty good.
And you bought it where now?
Micro Center.
Good to know. I'm amazed at the deals Micro Center's got. For those of you that have the ability to be mobile and go to a store like that, I think that's great. Some of us do not have that luxury. Yes, Joe.
I don't know what you don't like about the interface with Samsung.
I
To
don't
me, it's
like,
the easiest thing in the world to use.
it's clunky, and it's clunky as can be.
Okay, what do you mean? What parts of it are you talking about?
Everything.
No, because right now
I
mine,
don't,
mine's got one cable that
that's
comes
an
down.
impossible thing to say, because you just have to have it up there and running to say, I like the way that you have to go from here to 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 here to
okay,
finally
okay.
get to such and such.
You're talking about their menu. I'm talking about,
Yeah,
okay, I was
they're
talking
all-
about the physical portions of it.
Well, first of all, I don't like curved TVs. Period.
Oh, I don't like curved
And I'm
TVs.
glad-
Oh, I don't either. I tried them. I looked at them. When I bought, I didn't want them.
I think curved TVs are
But
fad.
the Samsung's got that one cable that comes down, and everything plugs into that little box. It's about
I'm not talking about the hardware. I'm talking about their
Interface?
Their interface,
Their-
their
their-
smart TV interface is junk. It uses their own.
their own, yeah.
Yeah, got
Yeah.
their own interface. I don't really use their interface much for the smart TV. I turn it on and I turn it off. Well, I turn it off sometimes. So I don't really interact with that interface much. I don't have a problem with it. The only thing I can compare it to is the Sony. I thought the Sony was responsive and worked great when it worked. But Reba had a new Sony, and I didn't like the new Sony that she had. I didn't like the interface. I didn't like the way it let her do the movies on her TV, from her computer to her TV. I didn't like any of that. So that's my comparison. I haven't had my buttons in my hand to monkey around with a Vizio to see how it compares with the Samsung. So my perspective is I'm happy with the Samsung.
Well, in 2016 Vizios, you use a tablet that comes with it, and you control it from the tablet, which is kind of neat. But I understand that
With the Vizio?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I understand that the 2017s, at least some of them, don't do that. I really haven't seen it on display and played with them yet. I'm not sure about.
Install. So for that to come with the TV, that's interesting. I didn't realize that.
Well, we are our own installers at our.
That's the best way to be.
And I'll have to bring you pictures, and you have to come over to listen to my dad's new sounds. But we've
I'd
been
love to.
playing with new. There's a whole lot of new 4K, ultra high def contents out there,
Yes.
and
I've got a link up, I think, last week about some discs that they said were ideal from, it was a link from, it was Tech Connect or Digital Trends, maybe in Digital Trends, that said these are good to show off your system.
well, AVS Forum keeps up to date what is available out there. They're about the best place to find what you can get, and they have people that review them too.
Good to know.
I just got for my dad and me the new mesh routers that
Which one did you
I
get?
haven't installed them yet. Eero.
Which one?
Eero.
Eero.
Yeah, after a lot of going around and around, I decided that they were the best for
Good.
what's there now. Of course, next year there'll be something better.
It seems like there always is.
But got 5 of them to start off with. So,
What do they average per unit?
well, the three pack is down from $4.99 to $3.99, and I got Best Buy to meet to a cheaper price by about $10 on that, and something similar on the 2-pack. And I hated to buy them from Best Buy, but
Where'd you get it at?
the Best Buy on Post Oak at Richmond.
Wow. Were they the only ones that had it locally?
Well, no, they weren't. But they're close by where where we live, and they're and Micro Center didn't have them, and I needed to get them then and there. My brother was visiting, and we wanted to get one of the Ring doorbells and set that up with the new system also. So
Have you done it?
no, I haven't had time yet, but I'm gonna set it all up.
Have you
at one
seen the
time.
new one they've got now where you've got a security camera with the security lights?
Well, yeah, that's an add-on.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you go to their website and put in a coupon from twit.tv, then you can save $150
That's a deal.
on that. Yeah.
I think they were advertising that was available from Home Depot. Has anybody seen
I
it?
think so. I think so.
I haven't seen it, so
Actually, I got a coupon from a one-day-only coupon from Home Depot the other day that had a bunch of junk but
sounds familiar.
didn't show era.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure we'll probably cover a security camera sometime in the future like that. Just a matter of time. I'm going to go back over here to our talking points. Thanks for sharing that, David. We've talked a little bit about drones. I've got a link up here on number 58, talking points. A UAV recovery system, a drone for recovering a drone. So anybody ever loses a drone, I've seen videos of stuff like that on YouTube. Plus, I've got several YouTube videos up here, but so we don't get into issues with copyright notices, I'll just say, here's some links. Usually the stuff on Cinescopophilia will be a page on their site that will either take you to Vimeo or to a YouTube video. Also, we've talked about 3D printers. It's interesting, there's a desktop 3D printer of the future of multi-layer circuit board design. I've got a link up on that as well. We've had something about 3D printers for the last 3 weeks, one item. The company in Europe that was setting up a print center, something last week about 3D printers, and now this. And before that, we were talking about using 3D printers for printing helicopter parts. That just blows my mind. I think it's fascinating.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the news lately this week about their printing uteruses for.
Oh, that was on the news last night.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I didn't hear the whole story.
Yeah, but I saw some stuff earlier in the last week or earlier this week about it. It's pretty interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. Mel, it's a,
Printing a uterus.
uteruses into which rats or mice or something are being transferred.
That's phenomenal.
I'm not sure I understand that.
I'm not sure I want to understand it either. Gosh. Let's see, and I've also got a link up here, number 72. Let's go back over to that computer, number 3, which would actually be, yes ma'am, 3DR site scan, commercial drone platform. I had no idea drones were such a big deal with site scans. Earthwork, it's just phenomenal. Now here I've got a link up on another laptop. This is an HP Elite X2. I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to have to mute this because we may get some junk. HP Elite X2 is the Surface Pro update we wish Microsoft would make. I haven't seen anything more on this other than it's got some basic specs. I'm not sure the price. $11.99? 6th generation. Do it. What'd you get, Jack? Oh, go back up. I was looking for specs. There it is, $10.99. Says it'll ship in July with a starting price of $10.99. Let's see if we can get on some site like maybe B&H. HP, CDW, TigerRect, B&H. I'm going to go to B&H. An X2 1012 G1. Was that a G1? Nope, this is a G2. G1, G1, G1. So the best we can do on the Elite G2, we'll have to go look at HP for now. Otherwise we have to look it up.
So you're looking at Windows 10 tablets, right?
Well, any type of laptop or tablet that's coming out, I think we should take the time as it becomes news to see how relevant it is to what we're doing.
Okay, so
Say someone doesn't want to spend $1,800 on a laptop, then would something at $1,200 suit their needs?
yeah. So I've got 3 Windows 10 tablets.
Which ones do you have?
I've got 2 HP Stream 7s, which came with Windows 8.1, and they're middle into okay. They were $299 or something like that.
$300.
It's a reasonable price. That's 7-inch, and I've got a 10-inch that is Asus. My wife has an Asus Zen whatever that's got touchscreen, and it's a nice one. And it was $1,500-$1,600 bucks.
Was it the Asus Zen 4K?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get it at Costco or?
No, we got it at Micro Center,
Oh, Micro Center had them.
and it replaced one that the year before model.
Was that the one that
without
you?
the touch screen, and one
Was
that
that-
I had a bunch of problems with.
Yeah, was that the one that you wanted a 4K? I mean, a 4 gig video card. It only came with a 2 gig video card, and the model you had was that the one?
No,
Different model. Okay.
but then that's my wife's going to school computer. You know, she's back in school, and the top student scholastically at Art Institute this year. I mean, every semester she's been there. So.
And that's her Asus Zen.
Yeah,
Wow.
but last June we got a little 10-inch tablet, an Asus 10-inch tablet that has been nothing but problems, and all of the Windows 10 tablets that I have seen or had experience with have a similar problem, if not a fatal problem. I mean, Micro Center has said that they will. That if we return this 10-inch tablet, Asus tablet, that they'll, give us that amount of money. I think it was $399 or something like that for.
What's the fatal flaw?
It is the charging with the little tiny micro USB plug that.
Not adequate.
It doesn't seem to. It's fragile to start off with.
Yeah.
And
We've got a converter over here with that little stuff on it. I don't like it.
and I've been holding off until new ones come out, and Microsoft had some stuff that came out on May 5th that was all way more expensive than what, it's their own reference for hardware for what the other manufacturers should be doing or can do with whatever, with their specs.
Right.
But the Surface Pros are a good example of them. But for that kind of tablet, if I want to spend $10.99, I want to get a good tablet. I want to get an iPad. I don't want to be messing with with that Windows junk. But the iPads just work the way that they should. And
Well, since this is build or buy, and we talk mostly about computers that we can build, buy, and upgrade, most laptops we cannot upgrade, but one of these kind of items is an extension of a laptop. So we need to look at the specs and be aware of what's good and what's wrong with them, like you pointed out.
Yeah, well, the problem with all of them is this little micro USB thing, USB
And
charger.
All of them use that?
And everyone I've seen uses it, and you plug it in, and it doesn't work. My wife will have it sitting beside the bed, and she won't use it for 4 or 5 days or 2 weeks or whatever, and then she goes to use it, and David, this thing's not charging again, and it's useless. Plus, another thing about Windows tablets is that they act just the way your Windows computer does. If you haven't used it in a while and you go to turn it on, then it's got to do all of this upgrading, and you know how that is.
Yeah.
And whereas if you get a iPad, and I would dearly love to give her an iPad, but I've given her a couple of iPads, but she hates Apple stuff. So
I love her already.
Just by nature.
I agree with you, Dwayne.
Yeah, but you turn on an iPad and it's there ready to work, and instantly, not having to wait for it to do 20 minutes worth of updates, and the smaller tablet device that you get, the smaller, less capable, less powerful thing that you buy, which is of course is going to be the inexpensive tablets, then the longer it's going to take for that to digest Windows' latest stuff.
That's all nice and good, but we're not talking about buying a tablet. We're talking really about buying a laptop, which they now are marketing as tablets.
Well,
True.
And so there's
the line is so blurry on what is a tablet and what is
right. What is a tablet? But the answer is the iPad is a tablet. It's a tablet. That's all it's good for. We're talking about dual-purpose laptops. Now, personally, I think it's a waste of time because I don't think most people are going to use a laptop as a tablet. But it's there. It's available. That's what we're looking for.
Well, the more people that get used to using a touch screen on their laptop, the more people are going to insist on it on all of theirs. Because once you get used to it...
I wish Nick was here. He's got a touch screen. He doesn't use it. Lou, do you use the touch screen on yours?
Yeah, but when you learn to use it...
I'd never use it, and I use an iPhone all the time. Why would you want to use with a laptop, sit there and peck at the screen when you can use a mouse, or if you like...
You can use your keyboard as well.
That's my point, and I'm asking the question. Andrew, do you use your touch screen? The daughter uses the touch screen, but you don't? They like the touch screen. I guess it depends on what you're used to. Yes, Mel. Can we get a mic? Can we get a... Folks, we got to get a mic on you. We won't hear you.
Yeah,
Lou, change.
I use the touch screen quite a bit because when I'm not connected to my big screen, I've got the laptop in my lap or somewhere else in the house or here, and I use the touch screen because it's easy.
Instant magnification. I can see the touch on a phone, but it seems to me the bigger the device gets, the less likely you are to going to touch it. If I'm using multiple monitors, I can't see running to multiple monitors. So it's nice we have access to these technologies, but it's just a matter of what's available where.
You remember 2-3 years ago when, I'm not going to name names, but certain people here were saying they were never going to use Windows 10.
Yeah, kicking and screaming.
Well, let's talk about touch screens in 2 or 3 years.
Good point. Well, anyway, people have asked in the past why we didn't look at laptops. So as I said, and I will reiterate, when these devices become newsworthy, we'll look at them and evaluate the technology to stay up on what's available. That doesn't mean you're going to buy it, but personally, you have some kind of reference. For example, if I were going to buy a laptop right now, I'm trying to decide which one would I want to get. So I want to take that perspective like we do the desktop. If I were going to buy a laptop, I would still lean toward the one like Lou, like Nick, and like Andrew got. Even considering the video with the new ones, because that technology will do everything I'm interested in doing, even though I'd like to have the newer graphics. The newer graphics, for me, don't justify the cost for the greater expenditure. So I still lean toward the Asus Zen laptop. Yes, sir, Dwayne.
How about the Dell, though?
Well, let's see.
You can't talk about it. The Dell gets all the top reviews all the time.
Yes. You're a fan of the Dell.
Yeah, and it's got the best technology. So you got, that isn't to say that's what you're going to buy, but that's something you've got to have on the top of your list.
And see, Dell has not been in the news, so I haven't been looking at the Dells. Dell,
You've been looking in the wrong places.
probably so. Places that I have looked at, I have not seen it. So that's why I say when y'all see something that y'all find interesting, if you'll send it to me, then I can get it up on talking points so we can talk about it. Some of this stuff I come up with, some of this stuff you guys come up with. It's like the arrow from Gigabyte. I first saw that from Dwayne, so it really piqued my interest. Because trying to find that on Newegg's site, you can find it now, but originally I couldn't find it. But with the information I got from Dwayne, that's how I got interested in it. So if you've got something on the Dell that I haven't seen that's of interest to you, it would be of interest to all of us.
Yeah, I've been following the Dell's 15-inch, I think it's called the 9560 now, and it still looks pretty good.
9569?
9560, I believe, is the model for the... There's a man who knows.
The Dell 9560.
Right, so that's a 15-inch Dell XPS 5960. It's
Let's just go take a look at Dell's site and see what we find.
It's too slow. Fingerprint button slows you down.
Jack,
I got it on this
I want you to
machine.
buy one of those so I can see how you like it.
Can we get a microphone on Jack so we can hear him, please? 15.6 inch. It looks slim.
Yeah, XPS 15 and model 9560 is the current one.
It does HD, 1920 by 1080. It says it'll also do 4K. So is that two different models?
It,
The UltraShot 4K.
it's available with or without a 4K screen on it.
Which way would you get it if you were buying one, Joe? Jack?
I would get the 4K.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'd lean toward. How about you, Dwayne? Which one would you go for? Still vacillating. Yeah, I hear you.
It's
Okay.
probably a toss-up right now, but I think the 4K is going to become more and more useful as they get scaling taken care of and so on.
Right, because you can always scale it down. Now, here's the other stuff that I want to know, the meat of it. Okay, this has a 4 gig GTX 1050. That's interesting. Didn't know you could get a 4 gig on a 1050. Thought there had to be a 1050 Ti. So for minimum specs on video, that is above what the Asus Zen had. It's got 32 gigs of memory, or excuse me, supports 32 gigs. It says it has an SSD up to 1 terabyte. It doesn't mention PCI Express, M.2, or NVMe.
Which means it doesn't have it.
Do what? I'm sorry, I can't understand you. Can we get a mic on Dwayne so we can hear him, please? What'd you say, Dwayne?
It's got all the fastest components on it. The Dell has got, I mean, you can read all the reviews and get all the details ad nauseum. Dell's website, I think, sucks, personally.
Whose website?
Dell's.
Dell? Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's not what it used to be. You find better information
Other places.
on Amazon or someplace like that, or the PC World, PC Magazine reviews give you the types of detail that most of us are interested in.
Well, if one of you guys will send me the link to this, so we'll have something we can work from.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it.
Actually, I have, but that's,
So is that the one you're going to buy?
well, no. I'm waiting for that beautiful liquid-cooled one that's silent as can be. And then I want one that switches from 4K back to 1980. I guess both it could anyway. For $399. Now, I'm not concerned about the cost. I just really don't know what I want. I keep thinking if I go for the 4K, I'm going to have to screw around with scaling and all that stuff, and I have no interest in doing that. And
Yeah.
what do you think, Joe? What's your...
I don't think you're going to have to screw around with it. I think they're going to get their act together, and it's going to be automatic, just like 1080 is.
Yep.
So that's,
Well, that's
that's what I think.
That's why I'm hoping one of you will lead the pack and get in there and then tell us all the good things that are
It will
happening.
not be me.
Yeah.
See, now we're talking about something with the operating system as well as something with the hardware.
Yes.
So, one, you're going to have a 4K desktop, which we've got some people that have that, but two, it looks like we're going to need that fall update to get this where we want it to be. I'm hoping that's going to do it. Remember, input 1 does not have anything there, folks. To remind y'all, input 1 is going to be for overlay for graphics or for a separate computer. Right now, that screen is blank.
Can we change the subject?
Yes, JB, go ahead.
Last week you were talking about your problems with you installed a Windows 10 and a updated to a SSD drive at the same time, and they wouldn't activate.
Nope. What I had done, this was on an M.2 PCI Express NVMe drive. I had installed Windows 10. I had then installed Windows 10, what's it called, the Creators Update. And apparently I activated Windows 10 under the Creators Update. Then when I had to remove the Creators Update because of the problems I was having, Windows 10 below that would not activate. It said me the key, it told me the key had already been used, which was extremely annoying. And I had to use a different key. So it wasn't because it was on an SSD, it was because I went from Windows 10 to Windows 10 Creators Update, and I activated Windows 10 under the Creators Update. Then I removed it, went back to Windows 10, and it would not activate.
Well, let me tell you my problem here.
Okay.
I have a desktop with a Intel NUC. It's a Celeron version, the bottom line, which is used for email and basically email and occasional.
Intel NUC with the Celeron. How you like it?
Well, I have just a little spinning hard drive in it.
Okay.
And it's slow. Very slow.
So
to
did you
load.
put a 7200 RPM drive in it, or did you put a 5400 RPM drive in it?
I don't know.
Okay, but it's a
just one
spinning
I
hard
have.
drive.
Sure. Anyhow, it is very slow. Now, the problem is I'm having booting it up because by the time it boots up, I think it goes into hibernation or sleep or shut down. And I want to take the hard drive out, clone it, and then put an SSD, SATA SSD.
Okay, well, let's see if we can find out which one you've actually got. Let's get the right model number. So I'm going to look here at an Intel NUC in a kit that's got a Celeron in it, and let's see if this is the model you have.
Did he buy the kit?
Do you have any idea of the, do you know if that's the model you have?
I'm not sure.
Did you buy a kit or did you
I
buy
bought-
the whole thing completed?
No, it was in the kit form. I had to add the memory. I've got 4 gigabytes of memory in it, which is more than ample for what that would be used for. I'm actually using a little 24-inch TV as the monitor on it.
Okay, the reason, what we're trying to do is to figure out which model you got, because what you're wanting to do may not be possible. For example, this one I'm looking at right now says the internal drive form factor is a 2.5-inch drive. There's no mention of it allowing to put an M.2 in it.
I don't want to put an M.2. I just want to use
An SSD?
2.5-inch SSD.
Got you. So I was going too far. Okay? So the
Yeah.
question being is, what'll it take to clone it?
Yeah.
Should be a simple, straightforward issue. You should be able to do it right from that machine. But because you
But I
only...
can't get it to boot up is the problem because, it's, as I say, by the time it boots up, it's already
What takes the time?
Loading Windows. It's just so slow to load Windows up.
We can go down through the issues of what we perceive that to be. One, because you got a Celeron. Two, because you got 4 gigs of RAM in there. And 3, because you're running off of a hard drive that you're not sure the specs. You bought the cheapest thing you could find.
Well, it was an old one I was repurposing.
I understand. So my suggestion, because it's got a Celeron, there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
I would put 8 gigs of RAM in there instead of 4. Then if you want to put an SSD in there, find whatever size you want, but don't expect miracles. You understand?
Well, it would be faster than
Anything will be
loading
faster.
from a hard drive.
Anything will be faster than what you got.
Yeah.
So you're not satisfied with how fast it boots?
Well, it takes about 15 minutes to boot up.
Now, is this a tablet or a desktop or
A
what is it?
Celeron, one of those NUCs, an Intel NUC.
Oh, a NUC.
Yeah,
Okay.
Intel NUC. And see, that's what I'm trying to figure out which one you've got. Just generically answering your question, it will help. And the question you're asking is, can it be done? Yes. Will it help? How much? I don't know.
Do you have any live CDs?
I have some live CDs, yeah.
With Linux on them?
With what?
With Linux,
Linux.
on them? You have a Linux live CD?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you try booting up on that and timing it? I want to find out if the time lost is actually loading Windows or before you get to Windows.
Well, I'd have to use a USB
That's okay.
CD reader because
That's okay. Or download the live CD and burn it on a thumb drive. And
I've got some on a thumb drive. I can try that.
Okay, burn it on a thumb drive, or I should say not burn it because you don't burn it, but put it on a thumb drive and try and boot from that, and then time it from the time that you turn it on until the time you see the screen going into Linux, not to Linux booting up, just going into Linux.
I haven't tried that. I'll try that.
And I don't see how it's timing out, do you?
Not sure without seeing the machine.
I've got some live CDs on a thumb drive
Okay.
for the Linux Mint.
Yeah, it's good. Then do it. Try that first.
Yeah. Celeron ought to handle Linux Mint all right.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Anything I handle in Linux Mint.
Yeah, it's not going to be a resource hog like Windows is.
No.
And what version of Windows do you have on there?
Windows 10 Pro. But I think when it got in, it was set somehow it got set to a balanced or something that after I think the power settings got reset in.
But that shouldn't affect the boot up time, though.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, but it just stops booting. That's the problem. Goes to a blank screen.
I think it's something else. Then I don't think that's Windows.
Yeah, that sounds like something else to me too. So we'd have to see it. That's not something we can tell you without seeing it, because I'm not sure you're remembering it exactly the way it is. You understand?
Maybe I can bring it in here, and
Okay. You'll have to do it when Joe's here.
which will be when, Joe?
Every Wednesday
Except
the 14th and 21st of June.
Lou, there's nothing on that input. Back up. Thank you.
I don't get mine on there.
Never fails.
Do what?
Never fails.
What never fails?
Your phone rings when.
Oh, whose phone was that? Is that yours?
Mine.
Oh. Tell her she'll just have to call you back. You could turn it off. That would help. I wish people would do that when they're driving. Okay, you got Joe's computer up there. Why do we have Joe's computer up? Okay.
That was your backup, I guess.
Okay, I tried to look up the NUC. I was trying to work with what I perceived JB was talking about, but I don't think it solved his problem. But if Joe can help you diagnosed, then that'll be something to look forward to. Going back to laptops, we've never had anything about engineering laptops, and I want to get back to this because everything always has been about gaming laptops. You read about laptops, it's gaming this and gaming that. You read about new motherboards, it's gaming this and gaming that. Well, I found this article that I found was curious on extreme technology for engineering students when work requires a real workstation. Now, for the kind of stuff that most of us do, I don't see, if you look up workstations, the justification for the price. I hate when they do that. But there's an HP ZBook G3. They're talking $1,500. Razer Blade, that's usually considered a gaming laptop. Again, it's got the GTX 1060, a 14-inch display. It does 4K. I think the Razer has got some great specs, but I think they're expensive. Now, there's a Dell Precision 17. Now, how does this Dell Precision 17 compare with the Dell that you were looking at, Dwayne? You were looking at Dell 15? The Dell 15 XPS? Can we get a mic on Dwayne so we can hear him, please?
In the Dell consumer models, once you drop below the XPS, the quality of the component drop down dramatically. Now, if you move into some of these business laptops, they're often better and more specific for business and engineering. But you just take a quick look at the price, and it'll tell you
$1,600.
that it's probably not all that great, because your XPS is going to cost you close to $2,000. So there's probably nothing unique about it.
Well, it says here can do 4 terabytes of storage, can do up to 64 gigs of RAM, where the other machines were doing 32. This can have even a Xeon in it, an i5 and i7, or a Xenon.
Which one you looking at, Gil?
I'm on Extreme Technology, and I'm looking at this. If you go to Builder Buy on the talking points, best laptops. Okay.
No, that's okay. I was looking here at this.
Oh, you got a different place up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the talking points I've got on Builder Buy.
Okay.
Again, on Builder Buy talking points, this is from Extreme Technology, and this is from Extreme Technology. It's number 13. Best laptops for engineers and engineering students. Number 13. So back over to this link, I'm looking at this Dell Precision.
Do we have any of those here?
Do we have any what?
Engineers or engineering students or anybody
Nah.
who would have any remote interest in something like this currently?
Okay, let me reiterate. As I stated, when something comes up that's in the news that I think it's relevant, that's why these are up. If y'all don't want to talk about laptops, we won't talk about laptops anymore. Because every time I try to talk to you about laptops, I keep getting exceptions. So I'm done with laptops, and don't ask me about them. Talking point number 7, Red Shark has an article up about the MP3. Apparently, Fraunhofer has decided to give up on the MP3 codec, which I find kind of curious. So if anybody's interested in what's going on with codecs, that affects all of us, audio and video, there's an article you can read about. And I mentioned about the tablets a while ago, and there's also a couple of links up about this ransomware attack. And everybody be sure and run your malware bytes. And there's also looking like an article on Red Shark about why ARM is designing an image signal processor. Could be big news, who knows. And let's see, I've got a link up from Dwayne about unified EFI. Has anybody ever had a need for another understanding of why we use the new BIOS, whether you want to call it unified EFI or BIOS? Anybody? Nobody has a need for it? You have a need for it, Robert? Can we get a mic on Robert so we can hear him? Without it, it's hard for anybody else to understand what's going on.
I thought you were offering to explain the benefits of the UEFI BIOS, and I'd be glad to hear it.
Just the benefits, we've talked about it. I don't want to get into too much detail on it because
Okay, well, I thought that's what you were offering to do. If it's not, then pretend I didn't say anything.
I think it would just confuse a lot of people. Well, there's an article there if y'all want to read about it. And if anybody's interested in doing audio repair, I've got a link up on that from YouTube about iZotope. So, and there's an article there from Tech Connect about Hulu with live TV. It's interesting. Hulu is going to do live TV. YouTube is going to do live TV. It's curious to see where that goes. Any questions? Okay, folks, thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you next week. Appreciate your support. And for those of you online, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you enjoyed it. It's different every time. Tough crowd today. Have a good day.